You're listening to the Proteus Leader Show, a top 10% world-rated podcast where you'll get practical tools and insights for leading, managing, and staying ready for the future. Your host today is a senior leader of Proteus International, a firm that focuses uniquely on leader readiness, working to support organisations of all sizes and industries all over the world. Ready for something you can use today? Enjoy this episode.
So welcome to the Proteus Leader Show. I'm your host, Marie Holive, CEO of Proteus International. Today, I'm honored to welcome someone who shares not only my engineering alma mater, Central Lyon, but also my early home, McKinsey Company. Jean-Hugues Monier has spent his entire career modeling what it means to lead with both excellence and purpose. He's an emeritus senior partner at McKinsey Company, where he advised global CEOs and CFOs on corporate strategy and transformation. But beyond the boardroom, he has consistently given back, inspiring all of us, whether by mentoring young leaders, supporting transatlantic education, or preserving cultural heritage. His contributions have not gone unnoticed. In May 2025, he was named chevalier de la Légion d'honneur by the French government in recognition of his work strengthening Franco-American relations and safeguarding cultural landmarks like Notre-Dame de Paris. Today, we'll explore how Jean-Hugues has integrated service and leadership throughout his entire journey, and how each of us can find meaningful ways to give back, no matter where we are in our careers. Welcome to the show, Jean-Hugues.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much, Marie.
So happy to have you. Now, throughout your impressive career in global strategy and finance, you've consistently found ways to give back. What has shaped this lifelong commitment to service alongside your professional success?
The answer is I don't know exactly. Part of it should be part of your own DNA and the way you've been raised, as I said, to give back. Part of it also is examples. I've been lucky in my professional life to have mentors. I started my journey with the French government, which is something that people would say, well, it's very autocratic or bureaucratic. No, I was lucky enough to get mentors that gave me also some help in my professional journey. And the only ask was, listen, in 10, 20 or 30 years, don't forget to give back to younger people, which I feel for me is a good call to what we can do. And I also moved to New York almost 3 decades ago. I found a place where, giving back was clearly part of the modus operandi and how successful business leaders were there. And that's also encourage you, because when you have clients, when you have fellow partners that are basically doing that already, that give you a little bit of a need or a nudge about what to do. So not so sure if that answered the question. Is it luck? Is it part of what you have in your own values or your professional journey? That's a combo of the three, I would say.
Yes, a combination of all of that. And I really relate to that because you and Marco Neto have done the same for me. You've been my mentors, you've inspired me, and now I feel a nudge to do the same. So I really resonate with that. And also the feeling you get, when you give back, that joy, and that's also the reward, I think, for all of us.
No, you mentioned Mark has been one of my mentors. I remember one particular event when I was still working with the government, a crossroad where there are two opportunities. One, to have a very successful career within the French administration system, or maybe I can do something a little bit outside my comfort zone, which would be to join, McKinsey. Didn't know exactly how it would unfold, which means moving to the US. But, the US, I haven't been there. And Mark's feedback was, listen, give it a shot. This is what you should try. That's an opportunity you should try. So for me, that's exactly when you have inflection points, you need people to give you not the, hey, don't worry, but rather, listen, take risk and try to do something which is a little bit outside your comfort zone. And Marc and I are still close as we are spearheading the money raising for Central Lyon. But I would say that that's one of the best advice I receive in my professional career.
Beautiful. I'm going to see Mark next week, so I look forward to that, and maybe you, if you can make it. Now, tell us a bit more about your involvement with the Lafayette Fellowship, like what it is, what's the vision behind it, because I think it's a great example for our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you think about where you can give back, There is what I call discrete in a mathematical term, where there is one event, you can raise money for something, or you can try to project yourself in 10, 20, 30 years. And what do you want to stick around? I've been a huge believer that the relationship between my two countries, because I'm also a US citizen, are super important. So in a way, we want to make sure that the young generation of French grandes écoles grads and the American kids also that went to the top university could find a way to get together. And the model we had is also what happened with the Rhodes Scholars or the Fulbright Scholars, which is a way to get some of these top kids to just to attend something. So what we did is we had a state visit, a big event, but rather than making very nebulous comment, President Macron, at that time President Biden, said together, well, listen, it's going to be close to the 250th anniversary of our country, and we're going to create the Lafayette Scholarship. Lafayette Scholarship is exactly on the Fulbright model, which is we're going to get a certain amount of a scholarship to bring some of the top US kids, master level, to go to some of the top French grandes écoles. And by the way, be immersed into a French family. And they would be basically finding a way just to discover what France is about. And Marie, you went to Central Lyon, so it's a toughest education possible. Yes. But I think in this global world, it's a concrete way to get kids to attend and to go a little bit beyond the comfort zone. So they can be studying in some of the top universities. My own daughter went to do, as I say, we talk about Central Lyon. My wife is an ingénieur des mines. So my daughter, Madeleine, in 11th grade, a summer internship at École des Mines. And that for me was a good example of getting to one of the top French grandes écoles, discovering also the way people work, the way it works. So the Lafayette Scholarship is exactly that model. And the way we frame it is to say, listen, we want to provide to some of the top US kids an opportunity to discover France. And I know just to get the mix of the higher education as well as the cultural experience in a French family. So that's how we get that together.
Yeah, that's very meaningful for me because I got a scholarship from the French government to go to the US. And my career was really determined by that leap of faith because it's the way to learn how to adapt. And I think those kids are given an opportunity to be in a very, very uncomfortable environment, different, and that prepares them to be great leaders.
No, Marie, you're spot on. I would even agree that today, I think going on the ground, doing concrete stuff on the ground is the best way to get a little bit of a reckoning. I talk about my daughter, Madeleine. She decided, because they have this kind of exchange program, she went to a German school, full immersion in Berlin, when she was in 10th grade. That's for me a very good example.
It takes courage.
Yeah, but also it's a way to get you better because you are now reaching a point where you don't know what's happening, but at least you get an experience. So for me, I've been pushing people to get outside the comfort zone. I used to say their generation is plenty of opportunity, plenty of competition. As a result, if you can get that experience, that's going to get you to go through this competition there.
Yes, when I was at General Electric, I got very lucky to receive the Chairman Award from Jeff Immelt, who was the CEO at the time. And, one of the rewards was to have a conversation with him, like face to face. And he said, Marie, ask me any question you want. And I remember this question in particular because it was a bit daring on my side. And I said, Jeff, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? And I was so humbled by his response. He said, I would do what you're doing, Marie, which is to come in a completely different country and take risks. And for me, it was also a different function because I moved into finance from engineering. But getting that experience, because even if he was traveling a lot for his work, it wasn't like living in a country, being fully immersed in a French family or American family. And that was one of his regrets, if he could do it all over again. So very, very aligned with what you said.
And this is spot on. We are living in despite everything we say, it's a global world. When I talk about competition, people need to realize there are kids born in India, Brazil, China, or in the global south that's going to be competing. By the way, they didn't have all the gift that many of us have in terms of having an opportunity to have education and so on. As a result, when you expand a little bit the aperture, that's going to make you a little bit better executive.
Yes. I'm curious about, based on your background as an engineer, strategist, global advisor to famous people, how that has shaped the way you think about giving back and the impact you want to have.
I mean, so for me, it's a journey. I've been with people that have been philanthropic at scale. Marco Netto is a good example. A couple of people like John Studinsky. So John Studinsky used to be the number 2 at Blackstone, right now number 2 at PIMCO. And he has a recent book that I found very good about philanthropy, both on arts, also on anti-slavery. In supply chain, you get people that are doing just random things. But for me, I look at John also as a good compass to where you allocate your time and your talent. Listen, when you are successful, the key trade-off is where you allocate your time, treasure, and talent. So for me, it's sometimes in non-professional career, there needs to be some focus. I would argue also on philanthropic, there needs to be some focus. I mean, yeah, you can throw money left and right, doesn't really matter. When you mentioned the Lafayette Scholarship, this was really something that would be called as a real, very concrete way just to make it happen to the next level. I have a passion from early music, Baroque music. And at some point, when I was 20 years ago, I joined the board of a Baroque orchestra. The chair of the board decided to resign, and they asked me just to chair the board. And listen, it was a complete failure. I have to confess, we were unable to secure long-term fundings. And to some extent, I was trying to fight the fight, but didn't work very well. The level of competition for Baroque music was intense because everyone was, touring in New York. And at the end of the day, I decided to merge that organization with Juilliard because I had some connection with Juilliard. So it was a good lesson also of failure. I would argue that failing, or at least learning a little bit of not trying to push something that's not going to work in terms of conditions and what's happening there, I think is also a good lesson. So listen, my observation is it's a journey. You need to accept also that you will grow aside from your professional career. The other stuff I would say to people is focus on your professional career, because that's also the way you can have an impact globally on the world. But I would say on the non-profit giving back, I think you need to learn also from your mistakes.
Yes, so many richness in what you said. The time allocation, kind of focus and maybe apply some of that discipline we use at work in philanthropy, because you cannot be everywhere and to have a lasting impact. I also think you have to align it with your values, what you care about, like you did with music, education. And then the other thing I'm taking away is not to be afraid to fail. And I thank you so much for sharing that story, because often you don't know where to start. You might organize an event, nobody shows up. I've had that experience too. And it's a learning process. So I would encourage our listeners to kind of try again.
And I would say if you start your journey, the advice I gave to younger McKinsey colleagues, when you elected as a McKinsey partner, which is an achievement, they were asking the question, where should I go for a nonprofit? And it used to be in New York City that if you are elected as a partner at Goldman or McKinsey or whoever, you basically get assigned. My advice, pick up something you're passionate about. Don't do it because you're gonna fill a checkbox. Usually that doesn't work. You can be happy to be at the Philharmonic or at the Metropolitan Museum or the Whitney or whatever, but is it going to fulfill your passion? For me, my journey, aside from that New York Collegium, has been also at Juilliard, has been also at Cristo Rey. Cristo Rey model, try to get kids from the lowest decile to college. So the one in New York is up in East Harlem. They get the curriculum in 4 days. The 5th day, they work in a corporation, and the idea is to send them to college. For me, the feasibility study was done with McKinsey 20 years ago. That was the most rewarding example because you can get kids, again, our country, I would say the education system is broken, but that's a very concrete way. And for me, when I was elected as a McKinsey partner, I remember one of my senior colleagues says, you may be interested trying to help on that one. So for me, it's a very fulfilling journey when you try to have something that you are passionate about and you are a young partner, so you don't really know what you are doing, but you try to build up. Then when you grow on your professional career, then you can basically decide to go things a little bit at scale.
Yeah, follow the passion also when it comes to philanthropy. And I would say that probably helps to be authentic as you're trying to fundraise and at least it resonates with you. People believe you.
Yeah, and also, again, come back to talent, treasure, and time. So there is to be this kind of magical equation between the three. And you need to be candid. Sometimes you are not going to be able to allocate too much time. And it shouldn't be obnoxious to say, listen, I will be in Europe for that amount of time. What's the best use of that time? Should I go to visit someone else that could help on that particular initiative? Or do you think to some extent I can give a lecture to Central Lyon students? Again, this idea is from the people is to say, what do you do with the three T's? And again, I think in the US, sometimes it's to shake up people for money, which, yeah, could work. But I think you need to have the right balance between the three T's.
Wonderful. So we love equipping our listeners with 2 to 3 practical tips they can take away. And in this case, if they're looking to give back, what would be those top 3 tips? And you've already given many of them, but it's fine to summarize them, I think, the 3 T's and what comes to mind.
So the first one should be part of your professional journey. That should be part of your professional journey. And as I said to many people, even when I do coaching for some senior executives, I would say the same way, when you are successful BU leader, you may try to join a board. My view is you should think about what's going to be my philanthropic commitment, what's going to be my non-for-profit commitment. So that should be something you think about.
Yeah.
By the way, when you start your career, it could be also just to have whatever, a soup kitchen. So for me, giving back to the less fortunate should be part of your journey. So for me, it starts from having a little bit of a belief that it should be not about you, but what you get back. So the second one is when you get more successful and so on, find something. Well, I would say give back to your alma mater. I mean, you and I know about that, but that's very important to say that you have been lucky because you get a very good education. You need to give back.
That's a foundation. And the professional journey you're talking about, I mean, it starts because of your education.
And it was but then when you are growing older, think a little bit, not to check the box, but what you are passionate about. What you are passionate about. And that's maybe my third advice. Talk to people that have a little bit of more tenure in your company or more tenure in your network and get some advice. Where do you think I should basically allocate my time? Where should I basically think I should allocate my money? Because at some point they can give you also some thoughtful advice and say, listen, this is what I see. This is where you can do. Listen, you mentioned also Notre-Dame de Paris. When the fire, it's also a good example about at some point you need to go all in. What happened when the fire busted 5 or 6 years ago? I get a call from the cardinal from New York and says, what do we do? And for me, we are trying to raise some money in the past for Notre-Dame, which was okay, but not great. We had at that time a moment, I remember on the steps of St. Patrick in New York, where the cardinal said, listen, we need as New Yorker to do something. And collectively, we raised $65 million for Notre-Dame de Paris. And that for me is a very concrete example. You seize the moment, that's an opportunity, and you get everyone, it could be whatever faith. I had many Jewish CEOs that decided they want to help because for them in Notre-Dame de Paris, one of them was a GI in 1944. And he would say for him, the bells of ringing of Notre-Dame de Paris was also something that remind him all the sacrifice that some of the GIs did. So for me, when you have this kind of very concrete moment, go all in and try to make it happen.
Wow. So make it part of your professional journey. Then make sure you're passionate about it. It's not for the CV. I love the advice of asking people who've done it, who are doing it, so you can be structured about how you approach it. And finally, seize opportunities as they come your way. Beautiful. Thank you, Jean-Hugues, for sharing this incredible story and for reminding us that leadership doesn't end with retirement.
You're right, Marie, and thank you so much for doing it, because I'm also inspired by a generation like yours that have been successful in their career, trying to just push that to basically broaden that. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, Jean-Hugues. I mean, I think you also have to do what you can at different stages of your life because, it adds up. So don't feel demoralized if you can't do as much as your mentors. Do what you can and keep growing it. So thank you again. For our listeners, if you want to learn more about how we support leaders through transformation and growth, visit us at proteus-international.com. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, here's to creating the legacy of giving what you truly want.
We hope you're feeling better equipped to create the career, the business, and the life you want. To find out more about how we support our clients in leadership, learning, and change, visit us at proteus-international.com. Have an excellent day, and thanks for listening.